capitalize his. We're discussing the Loving Search for the Lost Servant, which was published some 40 years ago uh, at our temple in San Jose, California. And we're pointing out that the author of the book was Swami B.R. Sridhar, and we offered this book into his hands. He knew about it. He liked it. It was his title. He picked that. So um, Srila Sridhar Maharaj liked using what we call in publishing a down style, which means you don't capitalize absolutely everything. Uh, and if you look at the American Declaration of Independence, for example, you'll see that the word justice, liberty, these words are capitalized to give them greater importance. So, for example, in Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam translation, uh, every time Krishna is mentioned, you have to say, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, that got abbreviated to SPOG, spoke. And so many similar kinds of things. If I say, I can't say Sridhar Maharaj, I have to say His Divine Grace. And then it's not proper to just say Sridhar Maharaj. It should be His Divine Grace Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. But we don't do that because he's really a special high-class Brahmin, come from a smart Brahmin family. So it should be Sridhar Dev Goswami. And then I can't just say, I saw Sridhar Maharaj yesterday. You have to say, I spoke with His Divine Grace
Yeah.
Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj, uh, Ṭhākur Bhagavan Prabhupada yesterday, you know. And oh yeah, what was the conversation? Well, he was discussing His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākur Prabhupada Bhagavan's idea about astrology. And then the conversation becomes impossible because it's so peppered with so many honorifics. Of course, if you read documents that were published during the time of the British Raj, where some potentate from Calcutta is talking about the viceroy, there will be so many honorifics for the potentate and so many honorifics for the viceroy, because people in India are very respectful and they like using titles and so on. But we thought to appeal to a Western audience, we would try to minimize the amount of honorifics. And so when we published this book, we put B.R. Sridhar on there because we thought that's enough. The Western reader will understand, you know. The use of the word Swami is interesting also because uh, mainly because of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda came to India for the World's Fair. He came from India to Chicago to attend the World's Fair in something like 1898. I don't remember the exact date, but it was at the end of the 19th century. And he was a big hit. Everybody loved him. He had a great message because, after all, people get tired of hell hot and sin black Christianity and intense restrictions on morality and behavior that were constantly being preached in revival tent meetings across the United States. And here's this Vivekananda talking about divine love and the divine light and yoga. And his message was really very well accepted. So, but he was Swami. And since that time, the name Swami captivates everyone. So every sannyasi in the mission, be they ISKCON or otherwise, they love to put Swami in front of their name or behind their name. Uh, Bhaktivedanta Swami, that was his sannyas name. I have a book over here called the Gaudiya Kantahara. In that book, one of the chapters is called Sannyas Tattva. Gaudiya Kantahara is an interesting book. It's a compilation of shlokas to be used by preachers that was commissioned by His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākur Prabhupada Bhagavan back in the 1920s or 30s. And it has different sections. There's Guru Tattva, Krishna Tattva, Gora Tattva, Vaishnava Tattva, Jiva Tattva, like that. There's 18 different tattvas, and one of them is Sannyas Tattva. And in that book, in that chapter, Sannyas Tattva, you'll find there's 108 sannyas names. There's like 10 principal names, the big ones, like Tirtha and Puri. These are like the big sannyas names. So in India, to call someone Tirtha, it has the same weight, force, and power as calling someone Swami. There's no need to call someone Swami Tirtha. It's redundant. There's no need to say Swami Śrīla. Śrīla is sufficient. Śrīla was the first commentator on the Bhagavatam. It's a great name, you know. So Mahayogi is also a sannyas. Now, you don't have to say Swami, but for some reason, everyone's obsessed with the Swami name. Srila Sri Ramakrishna really didn't call himself Swami, but we put that on the title there, Swami B.R. Sridhar. And we figured out that was enough honorifics. And I mention this only because when Pranashish and I decided to print a new translation of Premadama Stotram with a little bit more lilting, poetic English style, we put Srila B.R. Sridhar, I think, on the cover, and some devotees were appalled and upset and said, "How can you do that? You know, you have to put Swami. You have to put so many more honorifics." But I don't think this is ultimately necessary because Srila Sridhar Maharaj himself did not like the use of so much pomp and circumstance around him. He was a humble man, right? And of course, one of the problems you get if you don't supply enough honorifics is that people may tend to disrespect him. And I don't like that. But why do we call, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada? Well, we did that because that usage was established during his time. Why don't we have something like Ṭhākur or Bhagavan or Super Prabhupada for Srila Sridhar Maharaj? I don't know, But anyways, here we are, loving search for the lost servant. And this is the beautiful inside cover painting that was commissioned by Goswami Maharaj from B.G. Sharma. B.G. Sharma is really a great interpreter of this kind of thing. Nowadays, I see a lot of people putting up artificial intelligence generated images. And I don't know what to think about that. Srila Sridhar Maharaj himself warned us against generating too many images of Radha and Krishna and their pastimes, only because what we can see with our vegetable eye is not the same as what we will ultimately derive with our transcendental eye. When I lived at the temple in Los Angeles, last week I was talking about that. The Radha Krishna deities there are they're made of white marble. So the Krishna deity he's white. But in India, of course, you'll see black marble Krishna deities. And the word Krishna means black. We're told Shama Sundar. It means he has the color of a new cloud. So in the West, you'll see images of Jesus Christ where he's blonde-haired and blue-eyed and tall. But we know that Jesus Christ was probably a Sephardic Jew, which meant he had a hook nose and uh, dark brown skin and black curly hair. So the subjective nature of our sensual apprehension of imagery uh, may lie to us. And creating all these different images may be useful to get a general view. But Srila Sridhar informed us that the true reality of divinity will manifest itself through Shabda. Shabda means divine sound, and in this case, the mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra. Anyways, let's move to the first page in our book because we're beginning a reading of The Loving Search for the Lost Servant. And we have here an invocation. And of course, this this book, even more than Sri Guru and His Grace, was really, in a way, uh, Goswami Maharaj's project. He liked that the book would have a structure and develop through stages, much like the talks of Ramananda Roy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he begins with the Amnaya shloka, which goes like this. Amnaya praka tattvam harim iha paramam sarva shaktim rasabdim tad binangshang jivan prakriti kavalitan tad vimuktam chabhava Veda Veda Prakasha Shakalamapi Hare Sadhanam Shudabhaktim Sadyam Tad Pritim Eveti Upadishati Harir Gaurachandra Bhaje Tam. So this is a verse called the Amnaya uh, verse, and it's from a book that was created by Srila Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākur, where he's setting up what is to be the creed of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Just as the Catholics, for example, they have the Apostles' Creed, or the Muslims are to pray saying, Allah, there is no God but Allah. Allah is God, and there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet, and so on. They have a sort of doctrine. So this verse expresses uh, the very basic doctrine of the Hare Krishna movement or the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And Srila Sridhar says here in one verse, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given us the very gist of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. He says, we're not interested in the opinion of anyone ordinary. There's no value to any opinion other than what is revealed truth, amnaya. Amnaya means revealed truth or scripture that is coming through a reliable source, the Guru Parampara, a genuine succession of gurus. And what do they say? They enumerate these facts. Hari is all in all. Harim Iha Paramam. What is his nature? He's the master of all potencies, Sarva Shaktim, and he himself is the ocean of rasa, ecstasy, rashabdam. And the jiva's soul is not a direct part of him, but a part of his potency, not a plenary portion, but a partial portion. Everything is a part of Hari, but Svangsha means an avatar, and Vibhinangsha means a part of his potency, Tatasta Shakti. And by nature, some souls are engrossed in the external potency. And we find some in the lap of the internal potency. By their very existence, some souls are within the Swarup Shakti. Some souls are liberated, and some are non-liberated. Everything is a part of Hari and has something in common with him and something different. And the only means to attain him is pure devotion, exclusive devotion. Hari himself, in the form of Gaura Chandra, is giving us the understanding that divine love is the highest goal of life. So this is the basic sort of uh, Vaishnava creed, originally written by Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākur. And it's possible to look at the Amnaya Sutra and think, well, okay, so what? What does any of that really mean? Uh, well, what it means is this. Um, your guru will give you a certain practice, perhaps, if you're fortunate to get some service. Uh, you'll get some guidance. And sometimes we don't even get that from our guru directly. We get that from our god brothers. You join the temple and they say, well, what can you do? And you say, well, I could garden. Great, you're the gardener. So you become the gardener at the temple and you chant your rounds. But what is the philosophical thing behind that? You don't know, you don't care. That's fine. So many devotees may go on with their service with a serving attitude and a great amount of devotion. Problem is, after years and years and years, if we're all simply gardeners or washing dishes in the kitchen or fixing the guru's car or some such, over the years, the internal idea may become lost. So if you look at the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism as it was practiced in uh, Bengal, especially, you'll see that after the time of, say, Vishwanath Chakravarti Ṭhākur, um, a lot of the important Gaudiya Vaishnava leaders, they may have taken a contemplative life and avoided a big mission, a big movement. And a lot of uh, devotees like that, they sort of became babas or retired uh, saintly souls dedicated to chanting the holy name and so on. But their followers and the followers of their followers uh, may not have really understood what's behind this. And that may devolve into an easier going approach. Uh, and when Bhaktivinoda Thakur came along, he thought, well, I should try to consolidate this and make it very clear um, exactly what is it that we're about. Because there's all these little philosophical problems. Like, for example, people will say, if God is good, why is there evil in the world? Why is there genocide in Gaza? Why are people getting bombed and killed? Why are there cyclones? Voltaire wrote a very interesting book called Candide, where the philosopher Pangloss tells Candide, this is the best of all possible worlds. But then there's a big earthquake in Portugal, kills thousands and thousands of people. Well, what kind of God permits this sort of action? If God is so cruel that he kills little babies in an earthquake, then I don't like that God. I'm not interested in following that. Or then again, can God make a a big rock so big that he can't move it? If he's omnipotent, can he commit suicide? There's all these sort of nescient questions and answers that proceed from the atheistic level of society and tend to eat away at our faith. So then where do we stand on these things? If God is everywhere and if God is within everything, then like Vivekananda said, aren't we all just sort of drops of water that later merge into the ocean? Uh, God is one. I'm somehow godly. I'm a particle of God. Then at the time of death, all particles return to the great ocean of white light, the Brahman spirit. And this is really the goal of yoga. Well, so many yoga teachers teach that. We're yogis, right? This is bhakti yoga, bhakti yoga. So there's, bhakti yoga, there's ashtanga yoga, there's sleepy yoga, there's sex yoga, naked yoga. What's the difference? We're all one. I am you as you are me and we are she and we're all together. As John Lennon famously said. Well, John Lennon was having a son, but he was coming off a long meditative stay with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who invented meditation. Um, well, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Amnaya uh, is it's a sutra. A sutra, uh, it means a thread. Uh, and on that thread, you hang pearls of wisdom. It's something that's very, very concentrated. So when you hear the Amnaya spoken, you think, oh, well, what does any of this mean? What is the Tatasta Shakti? What does it mean, Vibhinangsha? What is the Swarup? I'm not interested in all of that. I just want to chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And Swami Bhaktivedanta was very clever in that he told the Western world, look, you just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. The meaning, the mantra will reveal itself. And that's true because as you enter more deeply into the mantra, you find all these truths reveal themselves. But Amnaya, what is it supposed to mean? Well, here's Govinda Maharaj. Govinda Maharaj says this, and again, I should offer more panegyrics and honorifics. So, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj, the self-same Guru Dev of the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, he comments like this. He says, within this one verse, which conveys the gist of the Dasa-mūla Tattva, Srila Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākur has given us everything. He's given us the whole conception of Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Dev, and Krishna consciousness. If you can read and memorize this verse, then everything will be within you. Well, that's a pretty good instruction coming from Govinda Maharaj. Again, he says, if you can read and memorize this verse, then everything will be within you. Wow. The full conception of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākur, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj, and Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. Everything, the gist of all revealed knowledge is within this one verse. So then he says, but don't try to understand this verse by yourself. Hear it from an expert. Everywhere throughout all the scriptures, this advice is given. You must hear from an expert. So hear this verse from an expert who knows its meaning. If you hear from him with full faith, you will understand properly what is what, and you will get everything. So let's go back through this just one more time quickly. All right, the verse says, Amnaya Tattvam. So that Amnaya, it means revealed truth, divine knowledge. And we understand that divine knowledge or revealed truth, it comes through the Vedas. It comes through the Upanishads and the Puranas and subsequent Vedic literature. And this has been distilled. There's a certain divine current that especially comes through Madhavendra Puri to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Swarup Damodar, the six Goswamis, Kaviraj Goswami. And really all of these things you can find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But the Chaitanya Charitamrita, of course, it's a very esoteric literature, and one may get distracted by so many wonderful anecdotes and stories about the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, Srivas Ṭhākur, all the devotees, that when one begins reading in the Adi Leela, the ontological aspect of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, one may think, well, this is very dense, I'll come back to it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur has done the favor of distilling that nectar that comes from the Amnaya, the Vedic truth. So he says it's revealed knowledge. Uh, Revealed knowledge is interesting. Sometimes we don't get the entire thing in one bite. If you think about the formula for the circumference of a circle, you need pi to understand how that works. And in the beginning, the Greeks worked it out to be 22 sevenths, and they were happy with that. That made enough of a version of pi. Later on, now we have pi, 3.14156 like that, to maybe 100 or 1,000 digits. It's always being refined. So we may get a partial aspect of revealed truth, just as pi was revealed partially. And later on, it may become more and more refined. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling us this particular refined version of the truth comes from Gaurachandra himself, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Amnaya Prahad Tattvam. So, and that truth, that tattva, what does it reveal? It reveals that Sri Krishna is the highest conception. Harim Iha Paramam. There's nothing more than that. You will not find a more complete theism than that given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in another place, I found this nice post by Yugala Murthy on the internet, Facebook, where Srila Sridhar Maharaj is describing comparative uh, revealed truths. You cannot just discard completely all the other different religions of the world. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, Christianity has its necessity. Islam also has its necessity. There's room for such creeds in the universe. They're not unnecessary, but they hold a relative position. In Islam and Christianity, there's theism. They accept one eternal God and Master, but that acceptance is according to their nature as a group, just as there is a Brahmana nature, Kshatriya nature, Vaishnava nature, Vaishya, and so on. According to their general natures, different nations have been given such installments of theism. So as I was saying, revealed truth is there, but it may appear partially, just as the original formula for the circumference of a circle was worked out by the Greeks to be 22 sevenths. But now we know, okay, you can go deeper. If you use 22 sevenths as your formula for pi, your circle will have corners. Uh, so installment of theism. In Srimad Bhagavatam, we find that installments are distributed according to the receiver's collective capacity as a group. Otherwise, if the whole is given at once, it will be too difficult, too complex for them to understand or to follow. So for the beginners, some theistic conception has been given only approximately and not in detail. After attaining further birth and rebirth, when they come to a higher position, then higher education about theism will be imparted to them. With such a policy, arrangement has been made for everyone by the Lord through the various scriptures and saints. So there's gradation everywhere. But in the Amnaya shloka, Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākur has distilled that for a more elite group of truth seekers. So Srila Sri Ramakrishna continues in this talk that I found. This is why we find Vedic knowledge, or Amnaya, truth existing beyond our present senses, presented throughout the scriptures in an indirect, veiled manner, in order to instruct those who are undisciplined or foolish. People are to be dealt with according to their stage. A boy should be given an examination for a boy, not for an adult. The question on a boy's examination will be of a different standard than those on the adults. Gradually, one will be taken to the higher standard. Just as a child is guided with some modified policy, that sort of process has been similarly adopted in the scriptures. Parokshavado Vedo Yam Balanam Anushasanam Karma Mokshaya Karmani Vidite Hyagadam Jata. The Bhagavatam tells us childish and foolish people are attracted to materialistic, fruitive activities, karma. Although the actual goal of life is to become free from such activities and attain Krishna consciousness, the service of Krishna. Therefore, the Vedic injunctions indirectly lead one to the path of ultimate liberation by first prescribing fruitive religious activities, just as a father promises his child some sweets so that the child will take his medicine. Everywhere in the revealed scriptures, this has been accepted. The degree of education should be imparted according to the audience's capacity. Otherwise, they won't be able to understand anything. There's a gradual process in the training. This is so everywhere. It is also true in our common experience. Progress does not come abruptly, but it is a process of continuous development. So, getting back to the Amnaya Sutra, we are taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that real knowledge is revealed knowledge, and it's Vedic knowledge. So what does it teach? It teaches that there is one God in the end. The supreme absolute personality of God is Krishna, and he is Harim Iha Paramam. Paramam means supreme. And then he is omnipotent, Sarva Shakti. And this is an interesting point, Sarva Shaktim. It doesn't mean that Krishna is responsible for seeing that Manchester United will defeat Barcelona in the football game. we hear that not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme, but this is worked out through his Shaktis. God controls all energies, but just as the president may control all the agencies of government, uh, still different agencies have their departments. The Department of Education, and somewhere in the Department of Education, there's a new policy about what books to use. The president is not so concerned with that. He has his agencies, he has his Shaktis taking care of business. So there is Swarup Shakti, and then there is uh, Tatasta Shakti, and there's Maya Shakti. For starters, within the material existence, there's a certain collaboration between the Tatasta Shakti or the Jivas and the Mayic energy itself, or the material world worked out in three different modes or colors, black, white, and red, if you like, or red, green, and blue, uh, creating all the different myriad aspects of material energy. What is good for the lamb is not good for the lion. You can't have the same law for both. A lion is not a vegetarian. If you make a rule that animals can only be vegetarians, then the lion cannot exist. If you make a rule that one animal will live by eating another, then the lamb can't exist because it's a vegetarian. So when the lion eats the lamb, is that evil? No, it's a simple law of nature. This is how Tatasta Shakti or Jiva Shakti in different evolutionary forms resolves situations within the material nature. The resolution of those situations is neither good nor evil in the animal world. Uh, Good and evil in the material world of human beings then becomes something of a relative consideration, moral and ethic consideration. And these things fall generally under the law of dharma, which is described in the laws of Manu. But Manu gives different considerations for the workers and than for the merchants, than for the soldiers, the kings, the enlightened kings, the Brahmins. So you can't say, well, if there's evil in the world, God is the origin of everything. He originated evil. This is very, very simplistic reading meant to fool ignorant people into not taking religion seriously or not taking God seriously. It's an atheistic argument, which is clever. People like Ricky Gervais, who I absolutely adore. I love him. He's so funny because he reminds me of my father, who used to act and talk exactly like that. He had a brilliant mind and ironic wit. But these are sort of clever things uh, that people clown with to get through the day. But this is not at all a profound look at uh, any real arguments about theodicy or the problem of good and evil in the world. So this idea of Sarva Shaktim, it's very pregnant with a lot of uh, deep and powerful ideas involving how is it that the supreme reality uh, weaves separate reality. And where's the distinction? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his comment on this, uh, he writes he writes a couple of more books. He writes one book called the Dasa-mūla Tattva, where he puts out the Amnaya uh, Sutra, and then he writes about 100 pages of commentary explaining it. He says, Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākur, he says, wise men have conviction. He's talking about the Amnaya, or this essential truth coming from the Vedas. He says, wise men have conviction that the religion of humanity cannot be many. The eternal religion of mankind cannot be divided into extremely opposing factions. At root, eternal religion must be only one. Why have many religions then arisen? The correct answer is that the religion or dharma of man is one when the soul is in a pure condition. When the soul becomes conditioned, the dharma takes two forms: conditional and unconditional. Unconditional dharma does not differ, no matter what country it's found in. When the soul takes on material designation and consequently different place, time, and body due to variety in matter, conditional dharma makes its appearance in different countries and at different times. So you can see when Srila Sridhar Maharaj is speaking uh, spontaneously on the basis of his own personal realization, what he says is a mirror of Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākur. There's no difference. There's no distance between them. The next point is Krishna isn't, so he's discussed here sort of in general. Absolute reality exists. It exists in personal form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He's omnipotent. He has all power, but that power is separated into different departments. He's Sarva Shakti. He's the owner of all Shakti. But there's different kinds of Shakti: his internal energy, or Swarup Shakti, his marginal potency, or what lives outside his internal energy. And then there's the Maya Shakti, which is sort of a shadow energy. And these three, while apparently distinct from divinity, function as parts of the whole. Now, of course, the monists will say, well, wait a minute, either God is true or he isn't. If he's true, the material world is also true. Everything is God. Uh, okay, but uh, it's not so simple. The absolute truth does not correspond to a reductionist point of view so easily. The Upanishads say, Om Purnam Ada Purnaminam, Purnat Purnam Udachyate, Purnasyam Purnam Adaya, Purnam Eva Vashishyate. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj would approach this shloka a bit differently than how Srila Prabhupada would translate that. I'm trying to see the shloka. But anyways, the way Srila Sridhar Maharaj would interpret that, he would say, well, look, nothing from nothing leaves nothing, right? If you have nothing and you take nothing away from nothing, what do you have? Okay, Ireland. No, Mexico. Zero minus zero is zero. Now, is that a truth? Can you prove it? It gets complicated. Somebody can write a proof on that. It would be thousands of pages long, I imagine, because zero is an imaginary number, right? Zero plus zero. Okay, I have nothing, and I add nothing to that. This I understand, okay? My boss says, I'll pay you next week. I don't have anything now. I'm going to get something added next week, but next week comes and there's nothing. So nothing plus nothing equals nothing. Yeah, okay, I get it. Nothing divided by nothing. If I have a nothing pie, I cut it in half. and I give you half. How much do you have? You have half of a nothing pie. So this is very easy mathematics. A child can understand it, right? And that's sort of Buddhism. Buddhism starts with nothing and it ends with nothing. There's a lot of pain in between nothing and nothing. But Buddha promises us with enlightenment, we'll free ourselves from pain. But okay, it's easy to understand. What about infinite? Can I understand infinite? Not really. What about all the grains of sand on the beach? That's good. But it is a finite number, isn't it? Someone can calculate that. What about all the drops of water in the ocean? Again, to me, that's infinite. I can't work it out. Infinite plus infinite, then. Uh, I don't know. How could you do that? If you have infinite and you add infinite, what would that mean? But by analogy with zero, I kind of get it. All right. Infinite divided by infinite. Here we come to the shloka in the Upanishads. Om Purnamada Purnaminam Purnat Purnam Udachite. That shloka says, if you have infinite and you add infinite to that, what is it? It's Krishna. Krishna and Balaram. Okay. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. Krishna and his angshas. Krishna and his avatars. Are the avatars weaker? No, it's the same. Sometimes Srila Sridhar Maharaj would use the analogy of homeopathic medicine, because in homeopathic medicine, you take something like belladonna, which is a virulent poison, and you put a drop of it into a swimming pool. And then that has the power of one. And then you take a drop from that swimming pool and you put it into another swimming pool. And that has like a 10-to-1 power. I tried homeopathic medicine, it didn't work for me. I had a terrible cough when I was in Australia, and the devotees said, "Oh, you have to try this." But Govinda Maharaj, he liked homeopathic medicine. But the idea is the weaker the formula, the more powerful it is. So you take Krishna and you dilute him. What do you get? 10,000 avatars. All right. So is it possible to divide the infinite? It is, say the Upanishads, but what you get is still infinite. Can you conceive of that? Infinite divided by infinite is infinite. Infinite minus infinite is infinite. So this is true in the case of the Swarup Shakti. Tatastha Shakti is a different quality. It's something like, say you have an ocean, and in the ocean of salt water, that's where the biggest fishes live. They're so big, they're not even fish, they're whales. There's the Timingala whale, which is a giant whale. So the ocean is filled with all kinds of life and living entities and kingdoms. Whereas from the ocean, you can get a cloud. Now, they're both water, but there's a distinction. There's a difference between the ocean and the cloud, right? Then again, even more subtle than a cloud is water vapor. You're breathing water vapor right now. It's on your head. It's in your eyes. It's everywhere, right? Check the humidity wherever you are. You'll see there's water vapor. How do you know? Well, tomorrow morning, you walk outside when it's a little cold and you'll see little dewdrops on the leaves. Well, the Tatastha Shakti is something like that. Somehow, uh, the divine energy, which is internal to God Himself, uh, has another aspect, which is undifferentiated spirit, the white light, if you like. And like dewdrops materialize out of water vapor, the individual souls congeal out of that undifferentiated consciousness and manifest themselves, much as dewdrops can manifest themselves from water vapor. So Om Purnamada Purnamidam, does that take away anything from the original infinite? No, it doesn't, according to Amnaya, or revealed truth. So there's the different aspects of that. Uh, there's Swarup Shakti, and then there's Vibhinangsha, Angsha and Vibhinangsha. Vibhina, it means like tiny particles. So uh, a self-same Swarup particle of God, that's like an avatar form, or an expansion form. The thousands and millions of infinite Vishnus and Vaikuntha. But the Jiva Shakti, this is just a little distinct. Okay. So Amnaya Praka Tattvam Hari Iha Paramam. So first there's this expression. There's revealed truth. And what is that? Krishna's supreme. Sarva Shaktam. He owns all the different energies. He's Rasabdam. He's the origin of rasa, the origin of all different sorts of mellows and relationships and tastes. Uh, Tadvibinangshams. And he has expanded energies. Chajiva, including the Jiva Shakti, the individual souls, Prakriti Kavalitan, who are involved in Prakriti. They're covered by Maya. And the idea of Prakriti is interesting because Purush Prakriti is something like the yin and the yang. Uh, Purush being person and Prakriti being nature. So all the different gods in the Hindu pantheon, Brahma, his Prakriti is Saraswati. Shiva, his Prakriti is Durga. Vishnu, his Prakriti is Lakshmi, like that. Krishna, Radharani. Every male, macho aspect has a female counterpart in the divine world. And in this perverted reflection of the divine world, in this material nature, the jiva is interested in becoming the lord and master or the mistress of everything that is seen. So the subjective entity or Purush wants to dominate the Prakriti or nature, in this case, material nature. And this sets up what we know as samsara, or the eternal, practically eternal wheel of birth and death, where the jiva is just constantly trying to enjoy Prakriti. Tadvidangscha jivan prakriti kavalitam tadvimuktam tadvimuktam chabhavat. He says, but yet one may become liberated from this. So the cycle of repeated birth and death can be broken when the jiva uh, develops a higher understanding through divine love that I'm not the Lord of all I survey. I am not the Supreme Personality of God. There is a higher reality. And I want to dedicate myself to that higher reality and join in the dance of Sri Krishna, Sri Radharani, and Vrindavan. So Prakriti Kavalitan, covered by Maya, Tadvimuktam Cha, I can become released from that by what? He says, Apihare sadhanam shuddhabhaktim sadhyam. So there's this process called sadhanam. It means that by practicing divine love, by practicing dedication and coming to the point of Shuddha Bhakti, where your dedication is not tinged either by karmic desire or uh, the obsession to renounce everything and um, merge into the divine light, because it's really another form of illusion, oneness. But Shuddha Bhakti, Sadhyam, Tat Pratim, by practice, Priti, love for Sri Krishna. And so this is the goal. And then again, in translating this, I've sort of skipped over. Uh, so here in the Amnaya Tattva, Bhakti Vinod is describing the nature of reality, spiritual reality, ontological truth as it's seen in the Vedas. And he has another point here where he says, Chabhavat Beta Beta Prakasham Sakalyapi. He says everything uh, in this explanation is Beta Beta Prakash. It's the same and not the same. It's different and non-different. It's one and yet somehow distinct. Beta Beta Tattva. And this is very difficult to work out. But if you go back to the analogy with water, for example, um, the ocean is water, but it's salty. A cloud is a little different. It's fresh water. But then there's rain. Then there's steam. Steam is water, but it has a completely different function. You can use steam to drive a train. You can't use the ocean, right? Steam is somehow taking water, concentrating it, heating it, changing its dynamic, but it's still H2O. So how is it that the soul is in the world? How is it that consciousness pervades material nature? Uh, and how is it that, in a sense, material nature itself is kind of pervaded by consciousness? Where's the distinction exactly? People talk about Rene Descartes and the mind-body problem, or they say, well, I'm not this body. There's a distinction between soul and material nature, but it's not an absolute distinction. There's some oneness there. And how do we understand that? Well, it's a chintya. It's very difficult to work out. And if you try, you will break your brain. And here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he differs a bit from Madhvacharya, who will say there's an absolute distinction always between God and the soul, between the soul and material nature, and between material nature and God. And this distinction is always an absolute. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, well, it's more subtle. It's more difficult to work out. And Srila Sri Ramakrishna gives us Hegelian analysis as a kind of a prop or a crutch that we can use to get through this, where he says, right, uh, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So if the thesis is God and the antithesis is soul, but there's somewhere in between. There's a synthesis, there's Tatastha Shakti. If there's soul as a thesis and the material world as its antithesis, the synthesis is somewhere in between. It's Chintya Beta Beta Tattva. It's hard to ferret out the exact distinction between a cell with consciousness and your human existence with consciousness. But in the end, this is not the focus of our spiritual practice. The focus of our spiritual practice is sadhyam tat pratim eveti. Love for Sri Hari is the goal, like that. So to sum up the Amnaya again, it has 10 points. So these 10 points are treated with at length in a book by Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākur called Dasa-mūla Tattva. Mula means the root. So he's saying, well, there's ten root ideas here that are really worth understanding for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And then he wrote another book called the Amnaya Sutra Tattvam, which is even longer, which is a long exegesis of these points. And his motivation for doing this was people would look at the Babas in Bengal and think, well, these people are sentimental. They don't really have any philosophy. They're doing questionable things. Uh, how are we to see any of this? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's compiling these shlokas and writing all these books to sort of justify uh, the life and teachings of the followers of Gaudiya Vaishnavism to the intellectual society of Bengal at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. So to summarize this, there's 10 points. The first point is, number one, revealed knowledge establishes the truth, amnaya praha tattva. Number two, Hari is supreme, Harim Iha Paramam. Number three, he is omnipotent, Sarvashaktim. Number four, he's an ocean of rasa, rasabdi. Number five, the souls are his separated parts, tatasta shakti. Number six, they're either covered by material energy, jivan prakriti kavalitan, or number seven, liberated from material energy by devotion, tadvimuktam chabhavat. Number eight, everything is a manifestation distinct and non-distinct from Hari, Beta Beta Prakasham Sakalamapi. Number nine, pure devotion is the way, Saranam Shuddha Bhaktim. And number 10, love for Hari is the goal, Sadhyam Pritam Eve Ti. And this is the Upadesh of Gaurachandra, Upadashit Upadishati Janan Gaurachandra Swayam Sa. So I'm sorry to have taken so much time. I wonder if everybody's still here because I'm reading off the computer. There we are. Uh, and you must forgive me if I'm not giving a fun talk. Uh, when you teach in school, everything has to be fun. You have to keep it happy. But I'm thinking there are some people who might listen to this later while they're riding on their bicycle through the Alps or something. Uh,
Of course.
Unless they're riding through the streets of Paris or, Merida, Yucatan, and they can wind the tape back or set it back to the beginning and go, what was that? Okay. Somewhere in the talk, I explained the Amnaya Tattva, or tried to. But see, one of the reasons you look at that and you go, this is too dense. I just can't get through it. I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna and be happy. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur is trying to, in a very disciplined way, uh, work out. If we had to put this in 10 words, how would we do it? And Srila Prabhupada was even better because he said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And that was enough, back in the 1960s. Some of the early devotees were ex-hippies. They liked getting high, but then somebody told them, get high naturally, chant Hare Krishna. Got high naturally, chant Hare Krishna. That's like 5, 6 words. That was enough. People were like, okay, how much is this? That's free. I remember when I was a kid, somebody said, oh, you should try Muktananda. You gotta go. Oh, yeah? Yeah, Swami Muktananda. Wow, what do I have to do? He's giving an intensive yoga weekend in Malibu. Cool. What do I have to do? Well, it's $295. Oh, forgot it. Now that was 1971. $295 in 1971. That's like $30,000 today. It's a lot of money. And I thought, nah, this is rich man's yoga. And then the Hare Krishnas approached me and said, come to our Sunday feast, get high naturally. I said, yeah, how much is that? It's free. And I thought, I can do that. That's free. But Muktananda wanted $295. Srila Prabhupada wanted my soul. It's free, but we want your soul. So here I am 50 years later, still trying to work it all out. Anyways, thank you all very much for giving me this opportunity, for being so kind to us to lend an ear. I hope it all makes sense somehow. I'm terribly embarrassed to do this. I know my videos might be out there somewhere, but I would never, ever, ever look at one of them because I just, oh, what did I say? Why? What was my hair doing? So thank you very much. Thanks again to Sivashini Meenakshi Sundaram for forcing me to do this. Hari Priya, her buddy over there in Ireland, Pranashish, the Pran, Sevarupa Devi Dasi, Tunga Rasi, I think in Norway with the big Tulsi, and Teresa Lorette de Mola, Tapanandini. Thanks to you. Good to see you again. Happy days, and Merida Yucatan, Gora Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Hare
Mahayogi, I have
Krishna.
a request from you.
What?
Can I ask you something? Can I ask you to repeat something? I would
Sure.
like you to repeat the sloka you say that we must memorize.
Okay. The shloka you must memorize. It's okay. Write this down. It's
Oh, look
called
at
the.
this.
All right, just remember this. Naya. Can you remember Naya? Okay, it's the Naya shloka. All right, that's
Okay.
it. And it goes Naya praka tattvam harim miha paramam sarva shaktim rasabdim tad vibhinangshans chajiva prakriti kavalitam tad vimuktam chabhavat Beda Beda Prakasham Sakalamapi Hare Sadanam Shudha Bhaktim Sadyam Tat Priti Eveti Upadishati Harir Gaurachandro Bhajetam. And then it's a big verse, you'll find it, but look up Amnaya, A-M-N-A-Y.
Naya.
Maybe somebody will put that in the chat before I
Yeah, I
disappear.
can send it later to you. Put it on
There
the.
That's
Yeah.
right. Put it up on the website so that everybody can see. All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you all. I'm going to disappear now.
Dandavad,
Thank you,
Dandavad.
Mahayogi Prabhu Ki Jai. Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
Mahayogi Prabhu. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhasini.